we're back. This is Alex Roebuck, not Alex Gershaw, and I'm Luke Kay. We're still here in IQ Games, covering the Northern League Legacy event here as part of British Magic Time. We've got round 2 ready for you. We've just been talking about the deck list a little bit, and we're going to pop down to the feature match area in just a second. So the two of us can commentate on all of the action down there. We're looking forward to this match, and I think the people in the chat are as well, so we're going to head straight down there now, if that's all right. Okay. Here we go. So action has started, and it looks like Dan's on the play. He's played a Floodist random passed. He has access to turn 2 show and tell here if he wants, with a soul land in hand. Meanwhile, John Hibbert's merely played a tapped man-land. How do you feel about this, Alex, this matchup?
Well, from what we've seen so far, the most interesting difference between the two opening plays is Daniel Lettin's fetch land go doesn't tell John Hibbert very much at all about what it is he's up against, what he needs to play around.
That's very true. Well, we know he's on Sneak and Show. The rest of the world doesn't.
Yeah, John's perhaps thinking maybe Miracles. Whereas John's opening play of a tapped Creeping Tar Pit tells Daniel an awful lot about what deck his opponent is.
That's very true.
Probably playing, what cards he might have in hand, what issues he might have to deal with. Shardless Bug is the deck that's most known for playing Creeping Tar Pit. And,
it really is.
Game 1, the cards that Dan will be worried about are Thoughtseize Hymn to Torak and Force of Will, but there's very little else, I think, really, that he's going to be worried about. A lot of the threats are just, value creatures.
Yeah. So Thought's using Hymn to Torak, as well as Force of Will, and Liliana the Veil.
Yeah, that can pressure Dan's hand, or it takes away from him just show and tell into Emrakul and pass the turn. That's not really strong enough. You want to, at the very least, have something along the lines of a Grizzlebrand that lets you draw cards in response if you're going to get edicted. Here's the Hymn to Torak that Dan may have been worried about. It looks as if there's no Force of Will there to protect Dan's hand for him.
So he's just going to shuffle and JL6. Hymn to Torak, random discard, quite powerful.
It's something
that
they
aggressively costed card.
It's something that they've tended to steer away from printing in general over the last few years, just because of how debilitating it is if you hit your opponent's only lands.
Yeah.
That being said, there is a card in the new set with Delirium.
Yeah, that sort of is a...
makes you discard 2 cards at random. It's the first time we've seen one of those in quite a while. I think I might be right in saying that the last one was Stupor in the Time Spiral.
Yeah, 3 mana.
Yeah.
So here it looks like I missed what we hit on the Hymn to Torak, but it looks like a Brainstorm.
There's a Brainstorm at the top of the graveyard there.
That seems strong. So Dan pondering, basically just trying to find the other half, whichever combo he needs. We saw he had an Emrakul in hand at some point, and it looks like it hasn't been shuffled away today, so he's probably just trying to get to 3 mana. There we go, double Emrakul is the draw for Dan. No shuffle from the Ponder though, that's bad for John.
It does look like Dan's perhaps got what he's looking for, or at the very least the fetch land allows him to revisit the decision in John's end step. A second hymn is very powerful. I was about to say that following a hymn up with a Ponder is usually exactly what you need. It hopefully undoes that damage, but a second hymn really is very powerful for John there.
So Dan discarding the rest of his hand, which is Cunning Wish Emrakul. John, interestingly, has drawn the 2 Hymn to Torak that he has in his main deck. He has 2 more on the sideboard, but it's very good for him to draw the best parts of his Disruption in Game 1 when he only has half of the actual package in his deck. He's done very well there. He's possibly been very lucky. He's possibly kept the hand of Creeping Tar Pit, Swamp, based purely on that, and to be honest, it's having not played a land in the past turn, he might struggle for the rest of the game to resolve spells. We've seen that he's got an Ancestral Vision in hand, but he's not had a time to resolve that yet, and obviously takes a while to actually finish off resolving. So we'll see how this goes. Dan's got lots of time to recover, is what I'm trying to say. So we have seen that John Hibbert has some Tarmogoyfs in hand. Tarmogoyf's an excellent way to pressure the life total of your opponent, particularly when they're playing a deck like this without any big creatures to block.
There's a green source, and that's going to allow us to suspend the visions as well this turn.
Wow. So this Tarmogoyf, thankfully the Emrakul shuffled away a lot of Dan's graveyard, so it's not going to be huge. But I do believe that John has land and sorcery. Or possibly just sorcery.
I think it's just the 2 sorceries. I don't think he cracked a fetch land.
Okay, so Dan obviously holding off catching his fetch land in order to try and shrink the Goyf. Is John attacking for 1 here? Or is he going for the ballsy spin the wheel Shardless agent play? I think that's John straight away from that. There are quite a lot of blank hits at the moment in John's deck. The 4 K.
Pre-combat Brainstorm, perhaps hoping to hit a fetch land.
But also Gross Tarmogoyf. Doesn't like a hit fetch land, but
Missed on the fetch line.
he
That
can
would
set
have
up
been
a
nice there.
Shardless.
Because that would have been +2 to Tarmogoyf, of course,
Yes.
as well as restructuring the hand to be more effective in the match. Right now, his remaining cards are basically all threats, which is not really what he needs.
Oh, it's not.
He needs to be interacting and disrupting as much as possible.
Yeah, it's not terrible. At least he's going to put the game away quickly. John can also here put 2 cards that convert mana cost 3 or greater on top of his deck and then shuffle them away with Shardless Agent
That's
when you
true.
come to the bottom. So he does have access to manipulate his library and it's sort of a thing that we've not seen with the 2 decks we saw in the feature match area last round.
So rather than play the second Tarmogoyf, John's left 2 mana up. I'm not sure what he was representing there, but I don't think he
It's
had
possible
anything
he's
to play.
playing around Dan Rathing for some reason. But here we go, we're going to see the Shardless. So the Cascade trick goes on the stack and John resolves it, hiding that Shardless that we knew he left on top. Flipping past, there are a lot of misses here. Asocial Visions is not one of them. Asocial Visions is very strong.
Losing the 3 Force of Will is probably a bit disappointing for him, but getting another 3 cards out of the bargain is...
Well, also Dan has to assume now that John's very unlikely to have Force Will in hand.
yeah.
Considering there are 3 on the bottom of his
you know,
library.
a really interesting element of Cascade that doesn't get talked about very much is the information side of things. Obviously, John's drawn 3 cards there, and Dan doesn't know what those cards are, but he does know what went to the bottom.
Yeah.
And realistically, Dan's going to expect a clear path when he's ready to cast his spells.
Yeah.
So that looks like Liliana and Strix
And a Decay.
and a Decay off the...
Decay not very powerful in this matchup.
No.
Probably coming out, although actually there are multiple ways to look at it. So if you're Dan here, you need to have assembled the 2 halves of the combo and just be trying to execute it as fast as possible, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the deck can do its thing as early as turn 1, given the God draw, but realistically, it's a little bit slower than that. You want to use the cantrips to sculpt your hand. You ideally want to go off with counterspell backup.
This pawn for Dan, we see Cunning Wish in Dan's list. Dan has a Wish board. Wish board's only really available in Legacies, though most of the cards have been banned in Modern or just haven't been printed in Modern format. Dan basically has a list of 12 one-offs in his sideboard that can all be fetched by Cunning Wish. This range is, 11. 11 one-offs in his sideboard. This ranges from answers like Sudden Shock, as well as win cons like Release the Ants or Intuition, which finds your answers. We might see him casting this Cunning Wish in John's end step here just to go for one of the ways to find his combo.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, Dan taking some sizable damage.
obviously, you effectively add 3 mana onto the cost of what you want to cast, but the fact that it's an instant and the fact that it's finding such powerful spells adds a lot of flexibility to the deck, and the ability to cast a Wish in the end step, untap and just win the game on the spot is definitely a big part of this deck's engine.
So as we talked about, this Liliana shutting Dan off, going show and tell pass,
Yeah.
because Liliana immediately gets to Edict. Dan now has to decide if he wants to let Liliana resolve, and it looks like he has done. He's not Cunning Wishing in response. John immediately pushes Liliana, which is the correct play.
Yeah. There's a nice little synergy here of John getting to
He had the
choose
opportunity
what to
to-
discard in order to...
artifact creature.
Yeah, there we go. So we've increased Tarmogoyf's power toughness not just by 1, but by 2, by being able to choose the Strix there.
Looking back, it's possible that we should have done that pre-combat. Because even if Liliana gets forced, we go Goyf by 1. So we'll see how...
Yeah, I'm not
I assume
really
this
sure
m-
what John was playing around there, but
maybe this mistake won't cost him. It's possible that if Dan had a removal spell, John might have just wanted to play Tarmogoyf, or even play the Baleful Strix.
realistically, I'm expecting this to be end step
Cunning Wish.
into untapping and winning the game.
Attempting to win the game.
Yeah.
John's F6'd, arms crossed. He looks fairly resigned to his fate here, but he does have this Liliana on the table, which is going to help against any show and tell nonsense. I suppose Dan is attempting to find Sneak Attack in order to give his threats haste.
So there's a singleton through the breach of the sideboard, which functions as a wishable one-off sneak attack.
Yeah. Which here is enough to, well, not win the game, but put John on no permanent resolving of visions, I believe. Oh no, it's Crystal Brand that Dan has in play, after having to discard the Oracle to Liliana of the Veil.
And John's got a handful of nothing.
It looks to me like Dan scheduled this perfectly. Oh, that's never cool. Scheduled this perfectly to avoid this vision having resolved. John is stacking all his permanents, but probably not scooping here, as
That
he's
does
not
only
just
put
dead.
him to 5, which means Dan does need to find another threat, but realistically, he's probably got a fair amount of time.
Yeah, he probably got a lot of time. But I respect that John might not want to scoop here. He's also drawing 4 cards in his upkeep. Well, it is in his upkeep and draw step here. Hopefully finding lands and spells. John has not had an opportunity to shuffle his library since he put those 3 forcibles on the bottom, which is a shame. But we're resolving this visions now.
Ideally, what he wants to see off this draw is at least one fetch land, possibly some other interaction. I guess a Thought Seize would have been ideal there if there's one in the list.
Not on the one in the main. There are 3 in the sideboard. It'll be interesting if John here there we go. He's thinking, should I crack this fetch before I draw? We know that there's forcibles on the bottom. John probably remembers that there are forcibles on the bottom, but won't necessarily know to act on it. It's also possible he should have discarded in his end step last turn. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah. No, he's just drawing for his turn. Okay.
Shuffle there.
He drew Deathlight Shaman, a good card to draw in this situation. And now we're shuffling, putting those forcibles back in our deck to interact with down the spells on the stack rather than just while they're in his hand. Interestingly, we're just quickly calling you judges. John Hibbert there forgot to discard in his discard step. Sorry, in his cleanup step. And so was given the opportunity to, in Dan's cleanup by mistake. This will be quickly resolved, but it's important to know that it's happening, just that everyone's made aware. And if you ever do have problems in this sort of situation, just call a judge. You just call a judge. Players continue here, and this Tarmogoyf is pretty big now, isn't it, Alex?
We've got Artifact, Creature, Instant, Sorcery, Land and Planeswalker, which is nearly the full suite.
We're missing Enchantment and Tribal.
Enchantment.
So, John here, pulling his way out of this, as Dan is simply draw, go. We're on a 2-turn clock here, and this Baleful Strix as well, doing a lot of work to stop being pummeled. I think John's favoured now. Dan counts Goyf. Goyf is big. Dan feels sad. Second hand. When the second hand comes out, you know you're feeling bad.
Puts down to 2.
Dan can no longer use soul lands. It's probably not relevant at this time in the game since he has 5 lands in play. But. And this Deathlight Shaman, even if Dan finds a way to deal with the Tarmogoyf, is lethal next turn. This has been exciting. Our opponents, John Hibbert here on one side of the table, survived a hit from Emrakul.
It's an excellent example of situations in Magic where people assume that the game is over when, strictly speaking, it isn't.
Yeah.
Another one is when people use the ultimate ability on Jace the Mind Sculptor. They very often assume that the opponent is just going to pick up their cards.
Dan scooped here.
Yeah.
So Dan, sneak attack down on Emrakul, attacked and still lost. What a game. So we're going to look at sideboards just shortly, but can we just take a moment to realise, how often does that happen? Attack on Emrakul. It spends more often than you would expect, but I'm still really, really impressed with that. So here we see Dan's wish board in action. There are 12 one-offs there, and one's Besage which you can't wish for, which is probably not coming in here, but comes in against Miracles and decks with lots of counter spells. The other 12 probably not coming in at all.
The majority of those are staying where they are and remaining part of the wish board. I think Blood Moon is very powerful in this match.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, there's a Pithy as well that you could board in. Anyway, 10 wish targets. I think that's a pitchy young
needle.
Actually, it was Pithy Needle just misspelled horribly on Dan's set list. I wouldn't worry about it. John Sideboard, on the other hand, he gets those 2 more Hymns to Arts. He's got
All the
3
discards.
Thoughtseize.
All the discard will come in. I expect the Pithing Needle for sneak attack.
He also has a lot of cards to board out, so we've got an interesting.
Sometimes you do have those matchups where what's more relevant than what to bring in is actually figuring out what to take out. Because if you've got 10 dead cards and only 7 relevant cards to bring in, which 3 do you leave behind?
Yeah. We have to think about, because John knows that this matchup, game 1, Replicate is not important. However, Dan knows this matchup, game 2, Replicate is really important. Dan's boarding in those 3 Blood Moon, and John is very weak to Blood Moon. So I happen to know that John's borrowing this deck off me today, so he might not be ready for Dan's sideboard tech. And while seasoned Shardless Bug players would know probably to expect Blood Moon out of these decks in game 2.
I mean, I would expect as one of the straight swaps, Abrupt Decay will switch places with Golgari Charm because
That's
Golgari
definitely
Charm can hit sneak attack.
Yes.
So
And
Golgari
Omniscience.
Charm helps in the same situations that Abrupt Decay would have done. I don't think we actually saw an Omniscience in game 1.
We didn't, so John's not forced to believe that it's
might not
there.
know that that's there. Again, Maelstrom Pulse. It's not an amazing card, but it can kill the sneak attack, and that means it's probably more relevant than some of the.
It
some of
also
the other
kills
cards in
if
John's
Dan
main
just
deck.
show and tells in a Grizzlebrand. Melting Pulse is good there as well.
Yeah.
If he's on turn 3, show and tell a Grizzlebrand, John shows in a land, untaps and pulses.
As a rule of thumb, Grizzlebrand hitting the table means the game is over. Removing it after the fact is sort of irrelevant. If your opponent can draw 14 cards in response to whatever you're doing, you might as well pick your cards up. It's something that I found quite interesting playing some of the reanimate versions of Grizzlebrand decks, especially Tin Fins. The number of people who will leave in Swords to Plowshares, expecting it to be significantly more relevant than it is.
Yeah.
Once Grizzlebrand's on the table, if the opponent's able to just draw 14 cards, whatever their combo is, they probably have it in hand again.
Even if it's the next turn, it's still not buying enough time. Excuse me. One final shout out. John's Rendilian Creek coming in here to stop Dan finding the other half of his combo.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hilarious in response to a show and tell. Being able to click away your opponents think that they were show and telling in.
And then still get to show and tell something.
Yeah,
yourself.
it becomes one-sided. And it's only for your opponent. When you cast a sneak attack in the show and tell, and they pop in this and click. Looking at opening hands here, Dan appears to have the combo of sneak attack and lands, but no creature. But he's going to keep it because he's got cantrips. John, on the other hand, has Force of Will and a fetch land, which is really relevant if John wants to play around Blood Moon, as well as Tarmogoyf.
That doesn't look like a second blue card, though. I think that's Thoughtseize Tarmogoyf.
We'll see what John plays here. Pithy Needle as well.
Pithy Needle.
Well, Pithy Needle and Sneak
Pithy
Attack
Needle
would
on Sneak Attack seems quite
be very strong.
here with two of
Knowing
those in
Dan's hand, yeah. He has Show and Tell and Sneak Attack, so Dan has access to Show and Tell in Sneak Attack next turn.
Assuming we're right in thinking that that's a Thoughtseize in John's hand, that's probably what I would want to lead off with.
He's
in this
deciding what land to
situation.
play, so John has the option of fetching up a Bayou. Oh, he's going to like Pithy Needle.
Of course, the other option for Pithy
Now,
Needle
is
is
he
just
going
to
to
name Grizzlebrand.
Grizzlebrand, yeah.
So we'll find out in a moment what card he's named.
I'll be fascinated to see that because obviously we know that Dan has double Sneak Attack in hand, but he also has a Show and Tell. Ooh. Oh dear. So Dan drew Emrakul, which means that Dan can go off, and John doesn't have a lot of answers to it.
Needle is on Sneak Attack.
Okay.
That's the Lotus Petal allowing Dan to move up a turn. We've got Show and Tell on turn 2 there.
Oh,
And
Omniscience.
that's Tarmogoyf versus Omniscience.
I'm casting Emrakul for game. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, Dan just had... Part of this deck is that every now and then it has the nuts, and Dan had access to nearly the nuts with a ponder, went with it, and found his answer, which was
The Ancient Tombs and City of Traitors do allow it to do that on turn 1.
Stop seeing.
So we'll shuffle up for game 3 there. As a rule of thumb, one of the best things you can do in Legacy is simply not pay for your spells.
Yeah, casting spells without actually paying the mana cost is really strong.
Getting huge permanents onto the table with effect like Show and Tell and Sneak Attack, using cards like Omniscience, or even Shardless Agent with the Cascade ability to mean that you're casting spells without paying for them. There's other decks that take advantage of this in other ways, like Infect has a lot of pubs with alternate costs. There's the Delve mechanic, which led to 2 cards being banned.
Yeah. But we still see Gurmag and indeed
Gimmick Angler, Becoming Events, those are still staples of the format.
So let's play a shuffle up for game 3 here. We see John not choosing to change his sideboard. We didn't see Blood Moon out of Dan, so I'll be interested to see if John kept the Abrupt Decays in. Pithy did name Sneak Attack there, so it's possible John has the Sixth Sense, but it's also unfortunate that Dan just drew out of the hit.
I definitely would have. It's possible that we didn't quite see correctly what was in John's hand, but assuming that it was a Thoughtseize, I would definitely have preferred to lead with that, just because it gives you a better indication of what to name with Pithy Needle.
So here, John's fetched a blue source with his fetch land. That means he's not playing around Blood Moon. But the Suspending Visions on turn 1 is a good way to get some traction in the matchup by... accidentally revealing the next one. By suspending this on turn 1, you mean that after a Council War, after a Hand Destruction War, after just some kind of interaction, John has the opportunity to refuel, whereas Dan has to draw like a regular fella.
I mean, we saw what happened in game 1 in the event where Dan doesn't have the extremely explosive, very quick hand. If there's some degree of interaction, if John gets a foot into the game, the visions really allows him to reload and interact with Dan's second attempt or even third attempt to go off.
Yeah.
So Dan leading with Land Ponder for the third game in a row.
Cantrips, we talked about in round one about cantrips being really, really strong and both players choosing not to play them in their decks and instead playing powerful cards. Dan having access to them means that he can find his combo quicker. John having access to them means that A, he can set up cascades with the Shardless agent, and B, just can find the answers to the things that Dan's doing or indeed other players are doing.
Just look for the most relevant pieces. I mean, John absolutely needs to find his discard spells and his counter spells, but also needs to find a window in between casting those cards to run out a reasonable threat. It's not enough for him to just sit back and attempt to counter everything forever if he's not attacking and dealing damage.
So Dan reveals his hand to Thoughtseize with double Show and Tell, Brainstorm, Pithing Needle, and Lotus Petal. So Dan has access to Show and Tell next turn, however, nothing to put in.
Yep. However, the combination of the Soul and the Petal and the Brainstorm gives Dan 4 chances to find something to put in with Show.
It really does. John took Brainstorm though, which I think is correct. Leaving Dan high and dry with half the combo is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, he has something like 9 targets that are very good to Show and Tell, and not counting the sneak attack. So he has 12. He has a lot of things that can just sneak in.
There's a real psychological trick that gets played on you when you're resolving an effect like Thoughtseize. When the opponent has 2 copies of something. If there was only the 1 Show and Tell there, I'm fairly certain that he would have taken it. But the fact that there's 2 makes you feel like you're wasting the spell because I'm taking 1 away from you, and now I know you've still got 1.
So here we go. We see the Show and Tell. Dan draw Omniscience for his turn. Yep, John's letting it resolve, and unfortunately, yeah, let's see how this goes. John playing Cleek in. Now, the Cleek triggers. He's targeting Dan, which I don't think is the play since he knows Dan's hand. I think he needs to target himself there. Because knowing Dan's hand, there are none of those cards you want to Cleek away, because you want him to have those in hand, you don't want to draw anymore. So I think you want to Cleek yourself there and just try and find a way to get rid of this Belgian Pulse.
Particularly relevant.
Unfortunately, he can...
Force of Will.
Do you name Deaththreat Shaman? I assume we name Deaththreat Shaman.
I'm definitely going to assume that's on Deaththreat Shaman.
It could be on Liliana, but most of the time when you're casting your spells, it's got to be... Liliana gets less relevant. It doesn't kill...
Needles on Shaman. Yeah.
John's untapping here. Doesn't look like this vision's going to resolve this game, although Dan could struggle, and we've seen players struggle just to find a threat. John's attacking for 4. Let's not forget how relevant Deaththreat Shaman's 1 power is. And simply... Paying the real cost, the iron price for his Tarmogoyf, and then spending another vision. So John's hellbent here, but Dan's not paying for his spells, but doesn't necessarily need to.
Doesn't really help if you don't draw any.
Drawing Spell Pierce for a turn there, so John's
that Thoughtseize on Brainstorm in retrospect is looking even more relevant now.
Yeah, it was huge.
Dan sat there, sort of ready to go, but
this is a 3-turn clock. Dan has 3 draws for his turn. And we'll see how this goes.
So it's just Land Sorcery in the graveyard.
I think instant because we Thoughtseize
Dan's side as well. Yeah.
Thoughtseize to Brainstorm. So it's a 2-turn clock. Dan can also has the opportunity now to attack with all 3 creatures next turn, then just attack with... If he just attacks with Deaththreat Shaman and Tarmogoyf this turn, leaving up the block for a possible attack.
That only works if we have at least 6 permanents sacrificed to annihilate.
We'll see how this goes. So John's drawn 3 cards, not yet drawn for his turn. Someone needs to remind John Hibbert to draw for his turn. He's so... Oh, unless he's responding.
Unless he wants to do this still in his upkeep. I'm not really sure what the value of that is, but...
No. Oh, Dan just forgot he could Omniscience out of Spell Pierce. John's going to pay for this Brainstorm, which feels weird. Judge, the Shardless Bug player forgot to draw for his turn.
No. The table judge is confirming that he did draw.
Oh, he drew 4 cards in the visions. That makes more sense.
I don't know if 2 of them were stuck together. It certainly looked like 3 from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, at least players will remember to draw for their turn. That's an important match together and characteristic. So here John's brainstormed and played a fish land, which is what you want to be doing.
Force blue card has been assembled in John's hand, which I think is essentially game over.
Dan having already used his Spell Pierce. Dan looks at Scalding Tarn. Not very pleased. That's a handshake. So we saw, in these 2 games, Dan Lettin has showed in or put in a really, really powerful card.
And then done nothing with it.
Unfortunately, just failed to kill his opponent. No criticism on Mr. Lettin, obviously he's just not drawn the right cards in the right order, and John Hibbert did line up his disruption perfectly in Game 1 and Game 2 with that false use of the Brainstorm.
Grizzlebrand really is the one you're looking for.
It really
which
is.
does make it a little bit surprising to me that he's only running 3 in his list. He's got this interesting trade-off of dropping 1 each of Grizzlebrand and Emrakul as part of making room for his Omniscience. That brings up his show and tell package from 8 to 9. But it does effectively reduce the number of cards that he can sneak in. It leaves him with fewer of his most powerful card, Grizzlebrand. I mean, the draw 7 is insane. There's no other word for it. Bear in mind that in this format, both Necropotence and Yawgmoth's Bargain are banned. The fact that you can put a Grizzlebrand onto the table on turn 2 or even 1 sometimes just seems ludicrous.
We see players, sorry, just talking short row. We see players discussing sideboarding decisions here. Dan showing off some of the sideboard tech. It's interesting to see. Yeah. And John boarding in Piffy Needle, Vanillion Clique, the 2 Hymn to Torax, and the 3 Thoughtseizes, as I expected.
Dan's Pithy Needle is an interesting one. I'm not sure it's entirely necessary. I think
Liliana Vale. It's a really good name in Liliana Vale. Or Jace Mind Sculptor if he's got them play.
Yeah, I guess the issue is that those cards shut off his ability to just turn 1, make an Emrakul off show and tell, planning to attack with it on turns 2 and 3. If your opponent casts Liliana of the Veil off the back of the Deathrite Shaman and edicts you're in a bit of a pickle. The counter argument there is he can't name both.
Yeah.
You know, if you name Lily, the opponent just plays Jace and Jace bounces. If you name Jace, he plays Lily and edicts you. In that game, he actually named Deathrite Shaman. I think any game where needling Deathrite Shaman is necessary to stop Deathrite Shaman draining you is a game you're probably losing anyway. In the majority of those situations...
Unless you've paid 7 with Grizzlebrand and are down to 2.
Yeah. If you've paid 7 with Grizzlebrand and not 1, you weren't winning anyway.
Well,
I think,
okay.
You know,
my point is like, we're coming back to the booth now, so we'll just, as players, fill in match results slips.
You know, this deck has so much fast mana in addition to the extra copies of Show and Tell, or, you know, you can get up to Sneak Attack. If you get Grizzlebrand onto the table and you weren't already on 2 low life to be able to activate him, realistically you should be winning the game at that point.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not sure what he removed to make room for the Pithy Needle, but looking at his list, either it's a combo piece or a cantrip. There can't really be anything else that's coming out there. So the majority of the time, I feel like I would rather have just something that's going to help me do the winning as opposed to stop my opponent stopping me.
No, I understand. You're very approach deck, and maybe the Pithy Needle isn't right, but either way, we saw in this case Sneak Attack lose to Shardless. I don't think it's a great match for Sneak Attack, but we are back here in the booth. It's Alex Roebuck and Luke Kay here, still with British Magic Time, still in IQ Games Huddersfield, commentating on Northern League Legacy as we saw Omni Show and Sneak Attack losing to Shardless Bug. As I said, I don't think it's a great matchup for them. The combination of hand disruption, cantrips, and stack interaction with Force of Will.
Yeah, we got to see.
It's difficult to deal with.
We got to see essentially both extremes of how that match can go. You know, sometimes the blue-red Omni deck just has it, and there's nothing you can do. You know, they're going to tear through everything you've got and bust the combo out in the first 2 turns. Other times, the black deck will have its discard spells at the right moment, or it'll have Force of Will just at the right time. And stopping them once is often just enough, because they have to draw both halves of the combo again and get ready to go off again. And if you've got a reasonable clock like a Tarmogoyf that's swinging for 4 or 5, especially in a deck that's able to get artifact creatures into the bin or planeswalkers into the bin and add extra points on top of that, it really pressures them to find the pieces that they're missing in time that they just don't have. And twice we saw Dan sort of go off, but not actually win. And it, you know, as we were saying before, it's situations where a lot of players would just pick their cards up without
John's position.
Would just pick their cards up without really analysing the situation and not really thinking about if they've actually lost or not. You know, there's been several games where people scoop in response to the -13 from Jace the Mind Sculptor, not realising that they're so far ahead on board that putting 3 cards back is actually enough time. Or conversely, the player activating the Jace hasn't even considered that doesn't mean they've won the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. Legacy is a format with big swingy effects, and sometimes they don't win the game, and sometimes they do. And in these cases, both times they just didn't win the game, even with the non-issues in play. Done and lost there. So we'll talk a little bit about the position these 2 decks share in the meta game. Omni Show, in its traditional form, or Sneak Attack, Sneaker Show, is one of the big pillars of the format in that it's a big combo deck. It's a turn 2, turn 3 combo deck that is very good against a lot of the fair field. We looked at Death and Taxes earlier today. a lot of the field is very fair and can't interact with this turn one sneak attack.
Yeah, it's packing some of the biggest, dumbest spells in the format in the shape of Emrakul, Grizzlebrand, and Omniscience. It's got a lot of the most iconic cards in the format that make you recognise it as a legacy deck: Brainstorm, Force of Will, Ponder. It's a deck that's sort of gone up and down a lot in popularity. In GP Kobe, I think it was last year, it was 2 or 3 of the top 8 decks, possibly the year before. It fell out of favour during the era of Dig Through Time. That allowed you to play a monocoloured version that was just significantly more consistent, more resilient, able to run more counter spells, more cantrips, because we didn't need to stress the mana base by going into red. Being able to cast that card without paying for it at all off the back of an Omniscience is incredibly silly.
So we saw Dan's little sort of shout back to that with the Omniscience in the deck. Dan still has the old Omni Showkill of Release the Ants in the sideboard.
Yeah,
in case you can't win with a big dumb fatty, you can cast a card called Release the Ants.
It gives you the ability to win without attacking, which sometimes can be relevant.
Yeah, we've looked at Ensnaring Bridge and effects like that in the past.
It also gives you the ability to win under the right circumstances, actually at instant speed. If you've got the Omniscience down, you can win in response to the effect that's going to destroy it or remove it. In particular, one of the things that you occasionally see is I'll cast Show and Tell. We'll both put our cards face down on the table.
Yeah.
We'll turn them over. Mine's an Omniscience and yours is an Oblivion Ring.
Yes.
So I've got until your triggered ability resolves, and then I've lost my Omniscience.
Yeah.
And the combination of Brainstorm, especially Dig Through Time when that was back in the format, and Wishes allows you to put together something that's going to win you the game in response to the Oblivion Ring trigger.
Which is obviously really, really powerful.
Yeah, perhaps not quite as relevant since Show and Tell's been less popular, but people still do occasionally have 1 or 2 cards to help answer for things like that.
Also cards like Grizzlebrand, other things that you could be show and telling in your opponent. In Legacy, your opponent is playing powerful cards as well, and the mirrored effect of show and tell is relevant.
Yeah.
So being able to win faster than them, just going on your turn and show and tell, then putting in an Emrakul and you putting in an Omniscience without the kill is bad.
Yeah.
If you both put in Emrakul and your opponent just attacks, it's pretty feel bad.
There was actually a game live on a Star City Games stream a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Where the show and tell player was against Battle of Wits.
Sure.
The show and tell player leads with Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Show and Tell, puts Emrakul onto the table on turn 1, and the opponent turns over a Battle of Wits, untaps and says, I win the game.
In my upkeep. Wow. I win in my upkeep. Awesome.
So not always quite as silly as that, but very often the show and tell can actually backfire in ways that players have not really anticipated.
Yeah.
It also makes the mirror incredibly odd. People start trying to next level themselves by doing things like, shall I just board out my show and tells? Shall I make him cast it? And,
difficult. Well, we've got some other decks in the meta here. We've got Reanimator. Again, this deck packs cards. Another Grizzlebrand deck packs cards that they want to show and tell in. Even to some extent, Dredge and Painter Servant decks have cards that you're scared about if they show and tell in. Even especially Mud. We saw hilariously Endbringer can tap down Emrakul all day long. So just showing tell and Endbringer is enough. And like D&T showing in Caracas, things like this. Emrakul doesn't always win the game in this format, which is lovely.
No, absolutely
it's lovely. It's really nice. I'm fed up of...
I've blocked it with a Baleful Strix in the past.
I
mean, in a real pinch, you can even float mana, put your entire board in the bin, and then drop a Vendilion Clique.
Yeah, I really think that Emrakul is not auto-win, as we saw today. No. And it's a bit of a shame that we've nerfed cards of that in Standard.
It's something that's been visible in Modern as well, when the Fist of Suns deck was relatively popular.
Gosh,
one of the first developments that was made to that deck was to throw in just 2 or 3 copies of Lightning Bolt. And people were asking what's that card for? Like, do you need to remove Scavenging Ooze? Do you need to remove Thalia? And the answer is actually no. What will happen very frequently is you'll combo off, and
they'll be on
16. They've got no permanence, and they'll be on 2 life.
Yeah.
And 9 turns later, you lose the game.
You're dead, yeah.
So if you just throw in something else that just gets you over the edge, as silly as it sounds, 15 power's not quite enough.
Yeah. Hey,